My beloved child, I know the weight you are carrying right now, the quiet heaviness that settles into your chest when you feel like you have reached the end of your strength. And I want you to hear me clearly before you decide that giving up is your only option. Because even in this moment, when hope feels thin and energy feels drained, you are not alone. And I am closer to you than your own breath. And I see the effort you have been making for so long, trying to stay strong, trying to keep going, trying to believe that things will change, even when the evidence around you seems to suggest otherwise. And I know how discouraging it is to feel like your prayers have been met with silence, your efforts with little reward, and your faith with more questions than answers. And I want you to know that feeling this way does not make you weak, it makes you human. And I am not disappointed in you for feeling tired, because I understand the cost of endurance, and I see how long you have been holding on, sometimes with confidence, sometimes with fear, but always with a heart that is not fully given up, even when it feels close. And I want you to pause right now and recognize this truth, that the fact you are still listening means there is something within you that still hopes, even if that hope feels fragile. And I honor that. And I am speaking to you now because moments like this are critical, not because you are failing, but because you are standing at a point where discouragement tries to convince you that quitting will bring relief. And I want you to understand that giving up may feel like rest, but it will only deepen the ache you already feel. Because the ache you carry is not from trying, it is from carrying everything alone. And I never intended for you to walk this journey by yourself. And I know you sometimes feel ashamed for feeling this way, thinking you should be stronger by now, more faithful, more patient. But shame has never helped anyone heal. And I do not speak to you with shame. I speak to you with compassion, because I know the unseen battles you fight, the nights when your thoughts do not let you rest, the moments when you smile outwardly while inwardly you feel empty. And I see how often you have chosen to keep going for the sake of others, even when your own heart felt depleted. And that kind of love is not unnoticed by me. And I know that part of what makes you want to give up is not just the pain you feel, but the exhaustion of carrying disappointment after disappointment, the feeling that progress is too slow, that change is always just out of reach, and that you are spending more energy hoping than receiving. And I want you to hear this clearly. Endurance does not mean pretending you are okay when you are not. It means bringing your weariness to me instead of letting it harden into despair. And I am not asking you to push harder, to try more, or to force faith you do not feel. I am asking you to lean, because leaning is different from quitting, and leaning allows me to support you in ways you cannot support yourself. And I know there are moments when you wonder if anyone truly understands how tired you are, how close you feel to the edge. And I want you to know that I understand completely, because I walked through weariness, rejection, loneliness, and pain. And I know what it is like to feel misunderstood and overwhelmed. And I did not walk away when things became heavy. I stayed, and I am staying with you now. And I know you sometimes fear that staying will only lead to more pain, more disappointment, more waiting. But staying with me does not mean staying stuck. It means staying connected. And connection changes how you experience even the hardest seasons. And I know you sometimes feel like you have lost yourself along the way, like the version of you that once hoped easily, dreamed freely, and trusted boldly feels distant. And that loss hurts, but you have not lost who you are. You have been shaped by endurance. And endurance does not erase joy. It deepens it, even if you cannot feel that yet. And I know there are voices around you, and sometimes within you, that tell you it is okay to quit, to settle, to lower your expectations, to stop hoping so much because it hurts less that way. But numbing your hope will also numb your joy, and I do not want you living a smaller life just to avoid pain, because I created you for fullness, not just survival. And I know fullness feels far away right now, but distance does not mean absence, and I am working in ways you cannot yet see, aligning things quietly, strengthening you gently, and preparing you for a future that requires the depth you are gaining now. And I know you sometimes feel like you are failing because you feel tired, but tiredness is not failure. It is a signal that you need rest, support, and truth, not condemnation. And I am offering you that rest now, not by removing every problem, but by reminding you that you do not have to face them alone. And I want you to stop measuring your worth by how much you can endure without breaking, because strength is not found in never needing help. It is found in knowing where to go when you do. And I am here, and I have not moved away from you, even in moments when you felt distant from me. And I want you to hear this promise clearly as we continue, that when you feel like giving up, you are not standing at the end of your story. You are standing at a place where my presence matters most, and I am with you here, steady, patient, and faithful, ready to carry what you cannot longer hold on your own, if you will stay and keep listening.
My beloved child, as you stay with me and continue listening, I want you to understand why this moment when you feel like giving up is not a sign that you are losing, but a sign that something within you is asking for truth, rest, and renewal. Because giving up often comes not from weakness, but from carrying strength for too long without relief. And I see how long you have been holding things together, solving problems, meeting expectations, and pushing yourself forward even when your heart felt heavy. And over time, that kind of endurance begins to drain joy quietly, until one day you wake up feeling empty and wonder how you arrived there. And I want you to know that I am not surprised by your weariness, and I am not standing back waiting for you to fix yourself before I draw near, because I draw closest when you are honest about your limits. And I know there are days when your mind tells you it would be easier to stop caring so much, to stop hoping so deeply, to stop trying so hard, because caring feels costly and hope feels painful when outcomes are uncertain. But hear me now. The problem is not that you care too much. The problem is that you have been caring alone, and I never designed your heart to carry everything by itself. And I know you sometimes confuse giving up with letting go, thinking that if you quit hoping or dreaming, the pain will finally lessen. But giving up hardens the heart, while letting go softens it. Because letting go places what hurts into my hands rather than burying it inside you. And I want you to learn that difference, because you do not need to quit, you need to release. And I know you sometimes feel like you are disappointing others, or even disappointing me by feeling this way. But I am not disappointed in you. I am concerned for you, because I see how much you have been pouring out without being filled. And even the strongest hearts grow weary when they are always giving and rarely receiving. And I want you to understand that receiving is not selfish, it is necessary. Because an empty heart cannot sustain love, patience, or faith for long. And I know you sometimes fear that if you slow down or admit how tired you are, everything will fall apart, responsibilities will pile up, people will be let down, and opportunities will be lost. But what truly falls apart is the inner life when it is never tended to. And I care about your inner life deeply, because everything else flows from there. And I know you sometimes tell yourself that this season is just temporary, that you only need to push a little longer. But I want you to hear me clearly. Endurance without renewal is not strength, it is slow harm. And I do not want harm for you, I want healing. And I know you sometimes struggle to pray honestly, because your words feel tired, repetitive, or empty, and you worry that silence means distance. But silence does not separate us. Silence can be a place of rest when words feel heavy. And even when you do not know what to say, my presence does not leave you. And I know there are moments when your thoughts spiral, replaying failures, regrets, and what-ifs, convincing you that you are stuck because you made the wrong choices. But your story is not ruined by mistakes, because I am greater than your past, and I am able to bring good even from the seasons you wish you could erase. And I know you sometimes look at others and feel ashamed that you are struggling while they seem to manage easily. But appearances hide many battles, and comparison only deepens discouragement, because it tells you lies about your own worth and progress. And I have never asked you to carry someone else's journey, only to walk faithfully in your own. And I know you sometimes wonder if the effort is worth it, if continuing to try will really lead anywhere different. And that doubt can make you numb, detached, and distant from hope. But numbness is not peace, and detachment is not healing. And I do not want you to trade your heart's sensitivity just to avoid pain, because your sensitivity is part of your calling, not a flaw to be silenced. And I know that part of you wants permission to stop, to rest, to breathe without guilt. And I am giving you that permission now, because rest is not quitting. It is trusting me enough to pause. And trusting me enough to pause takes courage when you have learned to survive by constant effort. And I want you to understand that staying with me does not mean staying exhausted. It means allowing me to strengthen you from the inside, gently and steadily. And I know you sometimes feel like you are carrying more than others, more responsibility, more pressure, more emotional weight. And while I cannot remove every burden at once, I can help you carry them differently, with peace rather than panic, with hope rather than despair. And I know you sometimes fear that if you stop striving, you will lose momentum or fall behind. But momentum built on exhaustion cannot last, and falling behind in the eyes of the world is far less dangerous than losing yourself in the process of keeping up. And I care far more about your wholeness than your speed. And I know there are moments when you feel like you have reached your limit, like one more disappointment would be too much. And I want you to hear this truth clearly. You are not at the end. You are at a place where my strength is meant to meet your weakness, because my strength is made perfect not when you have everything together, but when you admit you cannot keep going alone. And I am not asking you to pretend everything is fine. I am asking you to bring everything that is not fine to me, because that is where renewal begins. And I want you to hold on to this as we continue, that when you feel like giving up, it is not a signal to quit. It is a signal to draw closer, to rest deeper, and to allow me to remind you that you are still loved, still held, and still being guided even in the middle of your weariness. My beloved child, as you continue listening, I want you to understand something very important about this moment when you feel like giving up. Because this moment is not proof that you are weak, it is proof that you have been strong for a long time, and strength carried too long without renewal always leads to weariness. And I see how quietly that weariness has settled into your heart, changing how you see yourself, how you see the future, and how you interpret delays and difficulties. And I know there are days when even simple things feel heavy, when motivation fades, and when getting through the day feels like an achievement in itself. And I want you to know that I see those days clearly, even the ones no one else notices, and I am not distant from you in them. I am nearer than you think, because I draw closest when your strength is running low. And I know you sometimes feel frustrated with yourself for feeling this way, telling yourself that you should be stronger, more grateful, more faithful. But self-criticism does not restore strength, it drains it further. And I am not speaking to you with criticism, I am speaking to you with truth and compassion. Because I know that part of what makes you want to give up is the feeling that nothing is changing, that effort keeps repeating without reward, that hope keeps being postponed, and waiting begins to feel pointless. But waiting is not empty when you are waiting with me, because even when circumstances remain the same, something within you is being reshaped, strengthened, and prepared. And I know that is hard to believe when progress is invisible, but invisible growth is often the most important kind, because it builds the inner foundation that will sustain you when circumstances finally shift. And I know you sometimes wonder if you missed your moment, if life moved on while you were trying to hold everything together. And that fear can make you feel hopeless, but I want you to hear me clearly now. Nothing meant for you will pass you by, because I am not careless with your life, and timing that feels delayed to you is often protection from outcomes you are not yet ready to carry. And I know there are moments when you feel emotionally numb, when caring feels exhausting and detachment seems easier than disappointment. But numbness is not rest, it is a signal that your heart is overwhelmed. And I do not want you to live disconnected from your own emotions, because your emotions are not your enemy. They are messengers telling you where healing and care are needed. And I know you sometimes try to distract yourself from the heaviness, filling your days with noise, activity, or constant engagement. But distraction only postpones healing, and I want to offer you something deeper than distraction. I want to offer you restoration, and restoration begins when you allow yourself to be honest about how tired you truly are, without judging yourself for it. And I know you sometimes feel alone in this struggle, believing that others would not understand, or that sharing your weariness would burden them.
But isolation deepens exhaustion, and I never intended for you to walk this path alone, which is why I am reminding you again that I am with you, not observing from a distance, but walking beside you, carrying what you cannot. And I know you sometimes feel guilty for wanting rest, as if rest must be earned by productivity or success. But rest is not a reward, it is a necessity. And I built rest into the rhythm of life because I know your limits, and I am not offended by them. And I know there are moments when you fear that resting or slowing down will confirm your fears, that you are falling behind or failing. But slowing down to heal is not failure, it is wisdom. And I want you to trust that I am able to guide your life even when you pause. And I know you sometimes worry that staying hopeful will only lead to more disappointment, but closing your heart to avoid pain will also block joy. And I do not want you living guarded and numb. I want you living open and supported. And I know openness feels risky when you are already tired, but I am not asking you to open your heart to everything. I am asking you to open it to me, because I am safe and I will not overwhelm you. And I know there are moments when you question whether I am truly with you because circumstances remain hard. But my presence is not proven by ease, it is proven by endurance with peace. And even when peace feels distant, my presence has not left you. And I want you to understand that giving up is not your only option, even when it feels tempting, because there is another option. Rest in me, lean on me, and allow me to renew what has been depleted. And I know that part of you fears that rest will not be enough, that the problems will still be there when you stop. But resting in me does not ignore problems, it changes how you face them, because strength regained in my presence is different from strength forced through exhaustion. And I want you to remember this truth as we continue, that this season of weariness is not the end of your story. It is a turning point where you learn to receive instead of only give, to trust instead of only endure, and to stay instead of giving up. And I am here with you in this turning point, ready to carry you through it, one gentle step at a time.
My beloved child, as you remain here with me and continue listening, I want you to understand that the desire to give up often appears right before a shift begins inside you, not because the struggle is winning, but because endurance has reached its limit and is asking for renewal. And I see how long you have been pushing forward without pause, telling yourself you just need to get through one more day, one more challenge, one more disappointment. And while that determination has kept you moving, it has also quietly drained you, because endurance without replenishment slowly turns into survival, and survival was never meant to be your permanent way of living. And I know you sometimes fear that acknowledging how tired you are will somehow make it worse, that naming your weariness will weaken you. But truth does not weaken, it frees, because when you admit your limits, you make space for my strength to meet you. And I want you to hear this clearly now. I am not asking you to give up on your life, your dreams, or your responsibilities. I am asking you to give up the belief that you must carry them alone, because that belief is what has been exhausting you. And I see how often you replay moments of disappointment, wondering what you did wrong, what you should have done differently. And those thoughts quietly convince you that trying again will only lead to more pain. But your past disappointments do not define your future, and they do not disqualify you from hope, because I am able to redeem even the seasons that felt wasted or broken. And I know you sometimes feel like your heart has become guarded, like you no longer hope the way you once did, because hoping deeply feels risky when you have been hurt. But guarding your heart through numbness is not the same as protecting it through wisdom. And numbness may dull pain temporarily, but it also dulls joy, connection, and faith. And I do not want you living disconnected from the fullness I created you for. And I know you sometimes believe that giving up would finally bring relief, that letting go of expectations and effort would quiet the ache inside you. But relief gained through resignation is short-lived, because resignation slowly steals purpose, and purpose is essential to your soul. And I placed purpose within you not to burden you, but to guide you toward a life that feels meaningful and alive even in difficulty. And I know you sometimes feel like your efforts are unseen, unappreciated, or unnoticed, and that invisibility hurts more than you admit. But nothing you do with sincerity is ever unseen by me, and I see the quiet faith you you show when you keep going without applause, the integrity you maintain when shortcuts would be easier, and the compassion you offer even when you feel empty, and all of that matters deeply. And I know there are moments when you question whether staying is worth it, whether continuing to hope, trust, and try will really lead anywhere different. And those questions feel heavy because you are tired of being disappointed. But staying with me does not mean staying in pain forever. It means allowing me to walk you through pain without letting it define you. And I want you to understand that endurance guided by me is different from endurance forced by fear, because endurance guided by me includes rest, renewal, and grace, while endurance driven by fear only demands more from you without giving anything back. And I know you sometimes struggle to rest because rest feels unproductive, even irresponsible. But rest in my presence is not inactivity, it is restoration, and restoration prepares you to continue with wisdom rather than exhaustion. And I know you sometimes feel torn between wanting to stop and feeling guilty for wanting to stop. But guilt does not come from me, because I do not shame you for feeling overwhelmed. I meet you with compassion, and I want you to stop measuring your faith by how much you can endure without breaking, because faith is not proven by silence or suppression. It is proven by honesty and trust, and honesty with me is a form of faith. And I know there are days when you feel disconnected from joy, when laughter feels distant and gratitude feels forced, and that disconnection makes you wonder if something is wrong with you. But nothing is wrong with you. You are simply tired, and tired hearts need care, not judgment. And I know you sometimes fear that if you rest, everything will still be there waiting when you return. But resting with me changes how you return, because you return steadier, clearer, and more grounded. And I want you to trust that I am able to hold things together even when you pause. And I know you sometimes feel pressure to keep up appearances, to look strong, capable, and composed. But strength that is only external will not sustain you internally. And I desire wholeness for you, not just functionality. And I know you sometimes wonder how much longer you can keep going. And I want you to hear this promise clearly. You do not have to keep going in the same way, because I am inviting you into a different way, a way where you still move forward, but with support, grace, and peace. And that way begins with letting me walk beside you rather than behind you, letting me carry what has become too heavy, and letting me remind you that you are not failing because you feel like giving up. You are simply at a point where your heart needs renewal, and I am here to give it, patiently, gently, and faithfully. And I want you to stay with me just a little longer, because what feels like the end of your strength is often the beginning of deeper trust, and deeper trust will carry you farther than your own strength ever could.
My beloved child, as you reach this final part, I want you to know that I have been with you through every word, every feeling stirred, and every quiet tear that may have surfaced. Because this message was not meant to push you harder, it was meant to remind you that you are not walking alone. And when you feel like giving up, that feeling is not proof that you are failing. It is proof that you have been carrying more than you were meant to carry by yourself. And I want you to hear me clearly now. You are not weak for feeling this way. You are human, and I have never demanded perfection or endless strength from you. I have only invited you to walk with me. And I know that part of you still fears that if you stop pushing, everything will collapse, that if you rest, things will fall apart, that if you admit how tired you are, you will lose control. But control has never been what kept your life together. My presence has, and I want you to release the lie that says you must earn rest by suffering long enough, because rest is not a reward, it is a necessity, and I give it freely to those who come to me honestly. And I know you sometimes feel like giving up because you are tired of hoping, tired of waiting, tired of believing that things will change when they seem to stay the same. And that kind of tiredness reaches deeper than the body. It settles into the soul. but I am speaking to you now to tell you that your story is not ending here, and this season of weariness is not the final chapter, because I am still working in ways you cannot yet see, shaping strength within you that will sustain you beyond this moment. And I know you sometimes feel like your prayers have gone unanswered, like your faith has been stretched thin, but unanswered does not mean unheard, and delay does not mean denial. Because I am attentive to every cry of your heart, even the ones you do not have words for. And I know there are moments when you question whether continuing is worth it, whether staying hopeful will only lead to more pain, but closing your heart to avoid pain will also close it to joy. And I did not create you to live guarded and numb. I created you to live connected, supported, and alive. And I want you to understand that staying does not mean staying in suffering forever. It means allowing me to walk you through suffering without letting it define who you are. And I know you sometimes fear that if you keep going, you will break, but you are not being asked to keep going in your own strength. You are being invited to let me carry you. And being carried is not weakness, it is trust. And trust is the foundation of real strength. And I know you sometimes look at your life and feel disappointed that it does not look the way you hoped by now. But your worth is not measured by timelines or milestones, and your value has never depended on how far you have progressed, because I chose you, love you, and remain with you regardless of where you are on the journey. And I know there are parts of you that feel worn down, parts that feel forgotten, parts that feel like they no longer matter. But nothing about you is forgotten by me, and nothing you have endured has been wasted, because even in this season, I am shaping compassion, depth, humility, and resilience within you, qualities that will support the life ahead of you. And I know you sometimes wish you could escape, disappear, or start over, but you do not need to escape your life to find peace. You need to find me within it. And I am here, not waiting for you to become stronger, but ready to strengthen you as you are. And I want you to take this truth with you now, that giving up is not your only option, because rest is available, support is available, and guidance is available when you stay connected to me. And you do not need to have everything figured out to continue. You only need to take the next step with me, even if that step is simply choosing to stay, choosing to breathe, choosing to trust just a little more today than you did yesterday. And I promise you this, that when you feel like giving up, I am not disappointed in you. I am near you, holding you steady and leading you forward even when you cannot see the path ahead. And you may not feel strong right now, but strength is being rebuilt quietly within you. And this moment, though painful, is not meaningless, because it is a turning point where you learn that you do not have to carry everything alone anymore. And I will walk with you through whatever comes next, patiently, faithfully, and with love that does not waver. And if this message touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe.